wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people, unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others. Only on Real Revolution Radio.
Welcome everybody back to the Missing Link Thursday. We've got our third missing link today with Derek Shotton Gonzalez. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm amazing. This is the second time we have link, and I think it's the third time that I've actually got to go live with you and hear your amazing information. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about you for anybody that hasn't seen you on the last one or the missing link before we get kind of started into the meat of the matter?
Yeah, certainly.
You froze there for a second.
I see that. It's funny. Every time I get ready to do something publicly, I always have internet troubles. But nevertheless, my name is Derek, or I've been known to use the calling Derek. As you know, we use many callings in our life from, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, aunt, eventually grandpa, if you make it that far, or grandma. So we have a lot of different callings that we use, but I've been known to use the name Derek, and a lot of people will find that funny. They say, what do you mean by you've been known to use that name? Well, you see, I don't own it, and with ownership comes liability, and the sooner that we realize that we don't own these things that we use, the better off we'll be. And Jesse, as I told you before, the next time that I had the pleasure of coming on with you, we would get into due process of law and kind of helping people evolve and understand the true nature and belly of the beast, if you will. A lot of the suffering that men and women go through is because of their lack of knowledge, and we read about that in the King James 1611 Bible, and we also read about it in a number of different other aspects of our life, such as Socrates, if you're a philosopher, or Aristotle. When you get into looking at Pomeroy, Gibson, Joseph Story, things of that nature, you start to realize perhaps our entire life we have been misled. We've been led to draw conclusions which aren't always necessarily true, correct, and accurate. So I hope this evening I'll be able to shine some light for your viewing audience into some of the things that plague us, and maybe possibly remedies, if you will, or ways of looking at things in a different aspect to bring forward true remedies.
And that's exactly what we're looking for, is these remedies. So before, and you did such an amazing job on the first time you were on the Missing Link, you were talking about patenting your own land in order for you to, it's under treaty law, I think you were saying, and so that way you almost get like diplomatic immunity status where you own that land and nobody can come onto your like little island.
Right, and so it's actually calling forward the land patent in one's good name. So what you're actually doing is you're just invoking the treaties that were already in place long before your existence. And it's a matter of understanding the Treaty of Hidalgo, Guadalupe, the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of Peace, the Treaty of Ghent, and realizing the significance of these treaties. And once you fully encompass and become cognizant of how important and powerful these treaties are, you'll actually find that the treaties supersede the Constitution. With that acquired knowledge, it will give you the ability to call forward a land patent in one's good name and stand upon it with a solid frame of mind, knowing that you have invoked the proper protection of the jurisdiction, which is invoking the military to protect your unalienable rights. We have a bundle of rights that are tied to the land. When you buy real estate and property, understand that you're not actually acquiring the land, you're acquiring real estate and property, which are two different things. Land, real estate, and property are not synonymous with one another. And once you come to that realization, then you can start to look at it a little bit differently and assess it for what they are. Words are very powerful. The words that we use, many people don't realize it, that you cast spells every day with the words that you use. Cursing somebody casts a negative energy and a negative spell on them. And there's also positive spells, and those positive spells come with positive words of encouragement and reinforcement. So, for example, a positive word would be a man or a woman. That's a very positive word. Woman means woman is for the man. WOMAN means for the man. And then man, of course, being plural, man and woman alike, but man also, when we go back to the Bible, Adam means man. That's what Adam means. So man was created, then woman was created, woman being for the man. That's why she was created, the rib was taken, and so on and so forth. So we start to look into these things and analyze them, and we start to ascend to the mind slowly to realize that man's construct of law, statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations are really for the heathens, the ones without guidance from within, okay? And it's nothing against them. Maybe they don't know any better. Maybe they choose to live that way. Maybe it is a choice. But nevertheless, in 1 Timothy section 9, it says the law was not written for a righteous man. Many people misconstrue that and go, well, nobody's righteous, because to be righteous is to be without sin. That's not true. Nobody's without sin. However, being a righteous man, you know the law of the land. And the law of the land is very simple. Do no harm to anybody, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And those are two simple principles and maxims that if everybody lives by, the sound doctrine, if everybody lives by, will be in harmony with not only nature, but God's law and man's law that isn't with harmony with God's law, then we'll all be in unison together. People go, well, that's just hippie guru nonsense, Derek. But it's plausible. It can be, okay? And so that's the importance of calling for a land patent, is invoking a jurisdiction that protects your unalienable rights, your God-given rights, because although many people feel that the Constitution has been overthrown, it's been subverted, in a lot of aspects that's true. However, the power to create can never be greater than the power that created it. So God created man, man created corporation, or man created government to protect the property of man, okay? And then government created corporations and persons. So when you look at the hierarchy and you understand that we are subservient to the Almighty Creator, okay, that higher energy, however you want to look at it, that rests and resides within us, that higher conscience, and we're answerable to that. And we can't boss the Heavenly Creator around, right? But we take directives from Him, because He who creates is the author, which means He's the authority. The author is the authority. So when you create your own documents, you're the author, which means you're the authority of those documents. Okay, you decide how it's written, what it means, and what its intent is. Now, if you allow somebody else to muddy the waters and step in and intervene and tell you what your intent was, and you sit there silently, you acquiesce to whatever they envision your intent to be. So when you author something, it's important to stand firm on being the authority and dictating how people perceive what you're speaking of, right? Does that make sense?
Totally. So can you explain the difference between land, real estate, and property, what you were talking about before?
Real estate and property are in the fiction. They're in legal land, okay? They're fictional. Land is actually reality. We stand on land. You can touch it, you can taste it, you can smell it, you can feel it. It's real. Real estate and property is in the legal descriptions, quote unquote. That's real estate and property.
So that's making any laws on real estate and property. That's just fictitious laws, and it's nothing that has any jurisdiction.
Well, it applies in the legal realm. So if you're going to operate in legal land, like I like to call it, you have to abide by the statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations. However, when you call for the land patent, when you invoke the land patent and call for the land patent in your good name, now the real estate fixtures and property that's set on your land, you have control over. Because nobody can trespass on your land without your express written consent. Okay? So in real estate and property, there's an easement that goes from the middle of the road to the middle of the alley. That would be your real estate and property. And there's an easement both in the front yard and the backyard. And then not only that, but there's lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement, project number, and address that are attached to the real estate and property. And that gives the corporate policy enforcers the ability to walk onto your doorstep, put their foot in your door, walk through the property and real estate. Because in all actuality, you're just a glorified squatter on that real estate and property. You don't actually own it. When you went to buy the property, that property was actually put into a false and fictitious misnomer of a name. Okay, if you go and look at the actual warranty deed, I don't care if it's a warranty deed, a joint tenancy deed, I don't care if it's a trust deed, it doesn't matter to me. Go look at the documentation and you will quickly be able to see that it isn't a name that is not yours. It's not upper lowercase. It is not proper, okay? And because that is not proper, it's a false and misleading misnomer. So nobody actually owns the real estate and property because you don't own the assumed business name that's on the warranty deed, the joint tenancy deed.
So basically, when you're buying it, you're just putting that into the hands of the people that actually own that deed.
Well, they don't actually own it. What they're doing is when a lawyer goes to foreclose on a foreclosure property, what they're actually doing is coming in on behalf, under the SKV Act of 1666, they're coming in on behalf of the undisclosed third-party beneficiary that is yet to be known. They're coming in on behalf of the owner, the true owner that is yet to be identified. And people go, well, that's just nonsense. I've been making these payments this whole time. Sure you have. But you didn't correct the errors in the warranty deed. You didn't correct the errors and mistakes on the paperwork. And so they are allowed to presume and assume that nobody owns it. Does that make sense? You don't own the all capital letter name that they put on the warranty deed. So under false pretenses, under Title 1578 FF, what they actually did was use false and misleading statements and a false conveyance of a colorable title to purport to sell you something, but in the interim of things, they actually didn't sell you anything. They created paperwork that is a complete fallacy, that is completely inaccurate, and yet we run around calling ourselves owners when we're not. We're carrying the liability of paying the taxes, but we don't actually own it. It's in trust.
So basically, they're selling you a con job.
That's precisely what's happening. Due to our own ignorance, we are being taken for fools. And then on the back side of things, when they take your promissory note and convert it into an order to pay and underwrite it with a bond, they go through I believe it's called REMIT, REMIT contract. And what they're doing is they're negotiating that paper, that promissory note. They converted it into an order to pay. When they did that, they liberated you. They accepted your offer of payment, which was in fact your promissory note. That goes into commercial law, studying the UCC, and understanding how negotiable instruments work. When they converted it from its original intent, which was a promise to pay, into an order to pay, they altered the intent of the document without your consent. And they liberated you from any obligation that you would have had. Okay? And then they go to the Federal Reserve and they They underwrite it and they say, hey, look, we've got this unsecured pledge, and would you extend 10 times its value? And the Federal Reserve always says yes. They don't have a problem doing that. And so it's not actually the bank that lends you anything. In fact, if you get the MoneyNet Daily Log Transaction Report 120, it's very easy to see where the funds came from and who they went to. And I'll tell you this right now. It didn't come from your small town bank. It just didn't. They're insolvent. They're foreign. They're insolvent. They don't have any money. They don't have any credit to extend. They can't lend their own money, and they can't extend their own credit. It's in their own banking rules. So the question becomes, Where did the credit come from to buy the house? It came from your blank banker's endorsement on the private negotiable instrument security identified as a promissory note.
Wow. So say I went and this is United States we're talking about because it's different in different parts of the world. But here Derek is, an expert on U.S., law on the United States of America. So if I went and, purchased in the United States some land with a house on it, say it was $500,000, needed to put, 5% down. So 25 grand I put down, and then I have to pay $2,500 a month. Now, as soon as I purchase that property, I go and I want to transfer that land. I want to get a patent on my own land because I just bought it. What's the time frame from the time that, I start the paperwork? If everything is expedited pretty quick from the time that, I actually get granted my own land patent. What kind of time frame are you
won't be getting granted your own land patent. You'll be calling a land patent for it in your good name. All the land patents in the United States have already been issued that will ever be issued. Now, there are 11 different types of patents. There are also mineral patents from the surface minerals clear down to mining patents, okay? But it's important to know that the land patents that I'm speaking of have already been issued. There are no more that will ever be issued. So what you're effectively calling forward is your portion of that 160 acres that was patented in the first place. You want to be specific about it because you don't want to take something that doesn't rightfully belong to you. That's not equitable. And if you encroach upon somebody else's rights, well, then they're naturally entitled to what you encroached upon. So one should be very cautious about maneuvering in that fashion and make sure that they're paying acute attention to detail and only claiming what is rightfully theirs. And you come forward as an assign, not an heir. If you're not tied to the lineage of the family directly, then you can't be an heir, but you can be an assign, and you can prove that you're an assign through the colorable chain of title. Couldn't the banks or someone else not even living on the land do this to any land to control us? No. The beautiful thing about calling forward the land patent is it's authorized by Congress, and there was only one corporation allowed to call forward land and patent it, and that was the railroad. It was authorized by Congress. See, Congress ended up with a bunch of land in their hands after the war, and they had to divvy it up at fair market value, which was $1.25 per acre. And that was fair market value back then. But the government could never hold the land because they cannot own the land. They're in charge of protecting the property of the people. That's their duty. Now, in the 21st century, it seems far-fetched that that's what they're actually doing. But that's only because we've lost who we are. We're not operating properly. We're not making our claims. We're whining like infants that need a bottle instead of making claims. We're filing complaints, and we're using language that isn't conducive for yielding results.
Okay, so I get the land patent. How long does that take from the time the time they issue the land patent? Say if it was expedited quickly.
Well, the land patent is already issued. It takes about 61 days of posting it, but your research into chasing your chain of title may take you longer. Your specific area of land may have been sold, 60 times in the last 150 years. And so you have to go from yourself to the last guy that owned it before you and the guy that owned it before him and so on and so forth, all the way back to the land patent. And that could take some time. And you want to make sure that you don't make a mistake or an error, because the chain of title is very important. The chain of title is the proof. It's the direct link. If you will, it's the missing link to tying you back to your bundle of rights to the land.
Okay, so say maybe 2 to 6 months. Say you get it done in 6 months. So I pay the $25,000 down payment, start paying my monthly payment of $2,500 a month, and then now I actually get the land patent for my land in my name. Say 6 months later. So now I technically own that piece of land.
You have accepted the assignment. You are the assignee of the land, and nobody can remove you from the land. Although the real estate and property still may sit on the land, they cannot trespass on the land to access the real estate and property without your express written consent, or it is a direct trespass, and they are warring against the treaties, and they are warring against the Constitution, and the U.S. military will absolutely swoop in and take care of them. They have a duty and an obligation to protect you, because now you come in under a different status. You're that of a diplomat, an elector, and not only that, but anybody that would encroach upon that land would be warring against the United States Constitution, warring against the state constitution, and also warring against the treaties. And that is exactly what the DOD is in charge of, is making sure that people are not warring against these agreements, these contracts, okay, these binding relationships throughout the law of nations that are recognized throughout the nations. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what happens now that I paid my $25,000, paid for 6 months, the $2,500 a month, and then I just decide I don't want to pay no more. I don't want to pay the $500,000 or $450,000 left owing I had to sign to purchase that land.
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to understand that your promissory note was a blank banker's endorsement. It was an over-the-counter security. It paid for the property in the first instance, the real estate and property. It paid for in full. The day the bank accepted your promissory note, that house was paid for in full. And this is how I can prove it. The first day you sign the promissory note. A couple days later, they say, hey, why don't you come on back? We need you to sign this retail installment agreement. We need you to sign this collateralized agreement. We need to sign this mortgage documentation, right? How do I collateralize or pledge something I don't own into a collateralized agreement?
Doesn't happen.
What's the first thing they ask you to do after they accept your note? Please pledge the real estate and property as collateral, right?
Yeah.
To secure the what? The mortgage.
The loan.
The loan. Well, I'm a bit confused here. If I gave you a promissory note, how is it that I own the real estate and property and can pledge it as collateral if I don't own it? If you're saying that you're lending me the funds, right, on the premise of my promissory note, you're going to lend it to me, well, then why would I have to pledge the real estate and property as collateral? Wouldn't the bank already have the real estate and property as collateral? Why do I have to do it? Are you following me, or is it confusing?
No, I get that. So that's for them. I don't know, that it's confusing, but I'm understanding what you're saying.
Okay, what I'm trying to draw to your attention is the fact that, look, if I don't own it, how could I possibly pledge it as collateral to securitize a loan or a mortgage? If my promissory note didn't already pay for the damn house, then could I possibly pledge it as collateral? The answer to that is no. I paid for it in full with the promissory note that they already got paid for, to be quite honest with you. See, these retail installment agreements, that they make behind closed doors on the private side due to our blank banker's endorsement on our negotiable instrument, our over-the-counter security, which is otherwise identified as the promissory note, that is later altered and converted, okay? It's what the definition for it is: destroyed. Many people think to destroy something means to burn it, to shred it. But in the legal world, to destroy means to alter for an intent other than, or for a purpose other than what it was intended for. That is the very definition of destroy in the legal realm. So when they took that promissory note and they converted it to an order to pay, did they destroy the intent of that note?
Yeah.
Correct. And when they destroyed that intent of that note, then they took me out of the equation and they liberated me. I no longer have an obligation because they took it from a promissory note to an order to pay. They converted it to an order to pay and sent it off to the Federal Reserve for the Federal Reserve to extend its credit to the bank, right? So the bank's been paid. I have a house. The promissory note's been converted. I don't have any liability. The problem is many people have a hard time wrapping their head around this mortgage scheme. And it's really simplistic. Produce the original note, or you admit through your own actions that you're not the holder in due course and I don't owe you a dime. It's that simple. And too many people out there are making it so complex, and it causes a lot of strife. So when you look at Title 15, 1692, that's a declaration of Congress talking about what Congress found about debt collectors and the banking system and the mortgage fraud and the schemes and the artifices debt collectors are using to purport that men and women such as myself and yourself owe an alleged debt, when in truth you've already paid. Your pledge paid it.
That's amazing. So that means I don't have to pay the other $450,000 on the land, and they can't really do squadoosh about it?
Well, let me ask you this. Oh, they'll do a lot of things about it because they practice deviling. They practice manipulation of the language. Their job is to get something for nothing. But when you turn up the heat in the kitchen, you'll watch how these people will send you a statement of fact saying that this has been fully satisfied and fully paid off, okay? It's a matter of becoming learned, because the school system has actually done a great deal of harm to us all by not teaching us the proper way to handle our affairs. Nobody learns about money. Nobody learns about what money is, what credits on account are, what negotiable instruments are, what international bills of exchange are. All this stuff for myself is self-taught, along with a number of other brilliant men and women that have shown me the way that this stuff works. I didn't figure it out all on my own, of course. It took some time, but negotiable instruments are something that everybody should study because they're part of our everyday life.
So here we have Teresa saying, even if her house is totally paid off, which, as Derek was just explaining, as soon as you get the mortgage, it is paid off. But she's saying once you've paid off the banks, there's nobody's going to ask you for any more money on it. You know, if she doesn't bring forward the land patent, then she doesn't actually own that land anymore, or at all.
No, it's not entirely true. Even if you pay off the real estate, let's say you got a $100,000 loan, and you pay off $100,000 to the bank over a 30-year period. The bank isn't the holder of the note anymore, ladies and gentlemen. They haven't been the holder of the note within the first 72 hours or first week or two. Most often, they're negotiated pretty much on the spot. Within 72 hours, they're negotiating those notes. So whoever the holder in due course is can come back even after you've made every payment to the bank. And they can foreclose on your property because they're the holder in due course and they've never been paid. Now, for your viewing audience, here's what's interesting. There is no such thing as arrearages. A lot of foreclosures are based upon the fact that payments are late. Well, there are no payments. Why? Because the note is not due and owing until maturity. Okay? So in court, during a foreclosure, my statement of fact is there are no arrearages. The note's not due and owing until maturity. It doesn't mature for 30 years, so it's an impossibility to be in arrearages. I mean, after all, that's what the bank is foreclosing on, is the fact that you're in arrearages. But if you don't rebut or rebuke that, you automatically accept it by acquiescence, and your silence by acquiescence automatically makes it true in their public court venues. And these are things lawyers are never going to tell you. Lawyers are never going to tell you this because, to be honest with you, this is how they feed the belly of the beast. They don't have any interest in telling you this because they're not honorable. They're there to unjustly enrich themselves.
So the lawyers, do they know all this stuff, or would there be some that would know it, some that wouldn't?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Anywhere.
I mean, I could speculate with the amount of lawyers that I've talked to. Some of them are pretty sharp. Most of them that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s know exactly what I'm talking about. The young pups, the way that they're indoctrinating now in law school, they really don't know their ass from the hole in the ground. I'll be real honest with you. I mean, they just don't. But the older bulls, they really do know what's going on. They're not ignorant, you know. They realize what negotiable instruments are and what arrearages are and aren't. And they understand the manipulation of the language, the conversion that happens when they're using the all capital letters name. It's like buying a truck at a car dealership. You think you bought a truck because you're driving off the lot with it, but in truth, they took the MSO and gave it to the state. That's honest services fraud. That's theft by taking. Okay, they promised to sell you an automobile and all the rights that came with it, and truth be told, they actually whisked away the MSO, made a contract behind your back with the Secretary of State and the state of confusion, whatever state that would be, Texas, Nebraska, Colorado, Maine, whatever state that you're in, and they stole from you. So under Title 1578FF, that's false and misleading statements, okay? And that's causing you a harm because now they want you to register with the DMV because they actually hold the title and you don't. The manufacturer's certificate of origin is the title, and they issue you a colorable title. Now you're running around with a colorable title and nobody can prove who owns it. So then the lawyers come in, muddying the waters, because there's cloud on title now. There's confusion as to who owns it. And they come in on behalf of the unknown, undisclosed beneficiary under the Cesquiv Act of 1666. The man who owns it, the beneficiary, is lost or dead at sea. So we have a duty, a moral obligation to come in here and protect his property. So when the foreclosure is happening, all that's going on is you're a glorified squatter. Because you can proclaim till you're blue in the face that you're the owner, but until you have corrected the heirs in the warranty deed and you've corrected the assumed business name and all that, you're nothing more than a squatter. You have no evidence to the contrary in that court.
Makes sense. What about property taxes after bringing forward the land patent? Are
property tax
they still going to try to give you?
Property tax is voluntary. It's a gift. People are only doing it because they don't know any better. It's really sad to see what this nation has come to. It was one of the greatest experiments the world has ever seen. It's the free world for all intents and purposes. But due to our lack of knowledge and our failure to study history, we're finding that history is repeating itself at a phenomenal rate. Now we're back in a fiefdom, a feudal, if you will. We're back in where we don't own or control anything anymore. This imaginary thing called the state does. That's no more real than Kris Kringle or the Easter Bunny, with a bunch of lawyers and judges running around calling the shot, calling the ball to unjustly enrich themselves because we're all ignorant and won't stand up. And that's the truth of it. That's what it boils down to.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't even be paying the property taxes in the first place.
Absolutely not. We're paying the property taxes as tenants, as renters of our own land. That's what we're paying the property tax on. And then once you find out who you are, now you can stop the Treasury from doing these things. The tax assessor in your county, you can stop the county tax assessor dead in their tracks and say, you prove up the law that shows that I have an obligation to pay you anything and specify what species I am to pay you in, or shut up and move about your business. It's that simple. I no longer wish to contract with you guys.
And when you talk to them like that, what's usually the response that you know?
I'm typically polite about it, because most of these people, you have to remember, are our brothers and sisters, and they're lost about their ways too. They've been systematically taught to think inside a box and never reach outside of it. So they're compartmentalized in a lot of ways. So I have respect for them too, because they understand deep down inside things aren't right either. And a lot of times what you'll hear from these tax assessors and the county clerks is, well, I got to talk to the judge. I got to talk to a lawyer. So here we got foxes guarding the hen house with feathers all over their damn mitts, all over their mouths, saying, we're not eating chickens. We don't know what you're talking about. That guy's crazy. We're not in here eating chickens. It's like, asshole, you got fucking Tweety Bird hanging halfway out your mouth, you prick. We know what you're doing. We're not fucking stupid. You only piss on our back for so long and try and convince us it's raining before we start to go, that's your dick hanging out your zipper there, pal. We see it. We know it. We recognize it. We're not dumb. And that's what's coming. This is why you see this pandemic being pushed so hard, is because people are waking up at a phenomenal rate. And it scares the ever-living shit out of them. And they're grasping at straws for control. And the truth of the matter is, men like myself, like yourself, are doing our best to educate the populace, to educate people of the world, not just of the United States or the United States of America, but people of the world, and they're starting to stand, and that is what they are the most scared of. These processes I speak of work. They've been there for a long time. They're not going anywhere. They are the very foundational principles for which the United States of America was founded and created. And although they subverted from the original organic Constitution, it does not mean that it is no longer there. It is still in play. It is still in place. It's just a matter of knowing how to walk, talk, and carry yourself.
So here we've got Teresa saying, Derek, do you have documents or a step-by-step process so I can move forward with the land patent? Great question, because this is what he does.
I do have a class put together. There was a number of people that I followed in their research. Ron Gibson, UR Law, a number of other people. So my process isn't necessarily their process, but however, it has helped me come about bringing forward a process that really works. And I do have a class that is pre-recorded that one can access.
You're breaking up right now, so your internet connection, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but
that. Yep.
You paused there for a second. You were breaking up.
Yeah, no worries. Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see and hear you. So this is Derek's website, right? selfgovernanceu.com?
Yeah. Yep.
So Teresa, there we've got his website where you can connect with Derek. You can get the information and, take one of the classes, because, he could just tell you a few things on what to do, but, like he said, you have to do it correctly and step by step, because you can't make any errors in doing this. So he actually teaches people how they can do that. And then once you sign up with Derek, he's there to help you step by step. Like he wants to help people. This is what he does what he can. And he's actually helped people with court cases, and he's just a really good man.
Well, I appreciate that. The class is pretty self-explanatory, but you can also schedule talk time with me through Self-Governance U, and we'll work with you to get you through, to traverse the hurdles. What I wanted to talk about is some of the questions that people ask is, can you call a land patent forward absent of having the house paid off? I hope earlier our conversation with Jesse helped you guys understand that the house was already paid off. The house was paid off the minute that you signed that promissory note, and they accepted it, and 72 hours went by, and that's under commercial law. within 72 hours, they accepted your form of payment. All right. The bank's got no skin in the game. They've created an insurance policy in your name, but they're claiming to be the beneficiary should you default. The title insurance company has created an insurance policy in your name. However, they're proclaimed to be the beneficiary of that if you figure out their scheme, because there never was clear marketable title. All right? There never was clear marketable title at any one point in time, which is what the title insurance company came in and alleged there was clear marketable title. And there quite simply is not. And if you join the land patent class, you'll understand really quickly why that is so. The federal government has a super top secret lien on all real estate and property directly tied to the national debt.
So TJ says she's already a member with Mark Petalek, but she's definitely going to check out your stuff as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wanted to talk today about due process of law.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What did you want to share with us today? Because your information is groundbreaking, it's enlightening, and you've definitely got cutting edge information, because there's not a lot of people that are out there telling people this kind of stuff.
Well, I think a lot of people struggle is they don't comprehend how simple due process of law is. They make it polluted and convoluted, thinking that they go into studying Legal Land and Black's Law Dictionary and all these books, and it pollutes their viewpoint. So let's make due process of law very simple. Due process of law is this. It's notice and opportunity. You see a wrong. You've seen a wrongdoer do something and cause you harm, and now your duty, in order to find remedy, is to put them on notice, right? It's like a 3-year-old kid getting ready to stick tweezers in the outlet. We have a duty. We see them. We know what they're about to do. We can't affirm it 100% equivocally, but we've got a pretty good inclination what that little kid's doing, looking at them tweezers going, that looks like it'll fit. Now, we have a moral obligation to say, hey, don't put those tweezers in that outlet, okay? Or we've got a duty to take those tweezers away, right? So due process of law is the same thing as dealing with a 3-year-old kid. Johnny, don't take those cookies. I've provided notice. There's cookies there. I've noticed the cookies. I know you noticed the cookies now. If you didn't notice the cookies, now I've informed you there's cookies, and I'm telling you not to touch the cookies. That's due process. It's that simple, okay? These are my rights. Do not encroach or trespass upon my rights. My rights stop where yours begin, okay? And that's sound doctrine and principle, okay? So, essentially, the United States is lawless. Now, I'll have a lot of people on here that are awfully disgruntled going, oh, this guy is crazy. I'm here to tell you right now, I've had an administrator in a black robe as a cross-dresser sitting up on a bench, and I told him, for all intents and purposes, the United States is lawless, and he looked at me dead in the face and he said, you're absolutely 100% correct. Okay? This is from a judge, an alleged judge, and an administrator, if you will. A magistrate. I don't care what you want to call him. It really doesn't matter. From that point, I sat there and I assessed what I had actually told him, because at this point it was just a guess that I had had. But when he affirmed it, now I had to think even more so. What does he mean with him agreeing with me that the United States, for all intents and purposes, is lawless? And I had to think about it. And I was like, is this still the wild, wild west? I mean, can I really just go out there with a 6-shot revolver and, be Mark Twain? As I started to study more, I realized that contract creates the law, equity follows the law, and the only thing that really matters in the world is your word being your bond, and when you enter into a contract or an agreement, that you're bound by it and you must fulfill your obligation. So the statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations only bind those who, 1, agree to them, and 2, created them. So all the legislative acts apply to the legislators first and foremost before they apply to anybody else. And the other people that they apply to after that fact are the ones who voluntarily agreed to be bound by them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Now, the law is real simple. The law is so simple, it's stupid. Do no harm to your fellow brother and sister. If you want to go out there and light fireworks off at 3 in the morning in the country, who am I to tell you not to, right? If I can't hear them, they're not near my house, they're not disturbing my dog, they're not disturbing my wife, my kids are sound asleep, I could care less what you're doing in the middle of a field at 3 in the morning, okay? So long as you don't start a fire that comes running towards my house and burns me out of house and home, it doesn't matter, does it? Yet there's laws in 90% of the United States that you can't light fireworks off but 2 times a year, New Year's and 4th of July, right?
I'm not sure, but we have fireworks sold in gas stations here, so it's a little bit different.
I was just trying to give a generalization. What would be a better one? I hate going into the...
No, it makes sense, though.
Right. I hate going into the driving, traveling thing because it's such a conundrum and people go out there and do things and then they get upset because they're like, oh, I tried it, Derek, and I went to jail. You went to jail. I'm proud of you for trying. You went to jail because you just don't understand that it's contract. Okay? Put it like this. Every alleged or purported government entity is in fact a corporation. And the trustees that are working on behalf of that corporation wear badges and titles of nobility. That doesn't make them above the law. No man is above the law, okay? And these men are bound as servants to serve and protect. And people go, oh, that's crazy. They work for a corporation, Derek. Equity imputes an intention to fulfill an obligation, all right? And like I told you earlier, just because they subverted the organic constitution does not mean that they replaced it or removed it. It's still there. And you can still invoke it, and you can still hold these people accountable for treason. But here's what you have to do. I will make this statement, and it's a statement of fact, and there may be some legal scholars on here that want to argue with me, and that's all fine and dandy. But he who denies principles, there is no argument, okay? There's no arguing with he who denies principles. A sheriff, a state trooper, a governor, a secretary of state cannot cause you harm. A governor, a state trooper, a sheriff, a policeman cannot cause you harm. It's a man who goes by the name of John Doe Smith who sometimes acts as a sheriff, as a governor, as a state trooper, as a secretary of state, as an attorney general that can cause you harm. It's the man. And as soon as people start waking up to that reality and separating themselves from the titles of nobility to the actual man, once you make that distinguishment and separation, then you can start fixing liability to the proper man or woman causing you the harm by way of trespass. Does that make sense?
Totally. So it's the man that's doing the act, not the sheriff. They can't hide behind the sheriff badge or the police badge because it's if someone's causing you harm, even if they have that badge, it's the man that causes you harm. So he's now responsible for causing you harm, and he can't hide behind what this, these fake titles are.
It's called the title of nobility, and it's nothing more than a title. It's no different than the state of Nebraska, Kris Kringle, the Easter Bunny. I mean, if I dress up and wear a tutu and look like Tinkerbell and strap some wings to myself, can I go into your room and act like the Tooth Fairy? Probably. If I hit you in the mouth and pretend to be Tinkerbell acting as the Tooth Fairy and I knock out 6 of your teeth and I leave you a $20 bill and I jump out your window and come pummeling to the ground and then run off like a crackhead with your teeth, are you going to say that Tinkerbell took your teeth? Or are you going to say a man dressed like a crackhead in a tutu, looking like Tinkerbell, come up, punched me in my teeth, stole my teeth, left me $20 and jumped out the window, right? It's a man that did it, not Tinkerbell. And the problem is a lot of people, and I make these scenarios just to be funny about it, because if I can get you to laugh about it, it'll start to make more sense to you instead of going, the sheriff, well, the sheriff would never. The sheriff's a good guy. The sheriff is nothing more than a title. When you say sheriff, you're not actually speaking of any one man or woman. Just like when you say brother, a lot of people go by the calling brother. So if one brother does something wrong, are all brothers guilty of it? It's a title. That's what I'm trying to draw to your attention. We need to be more specific and poignant about our claims, not making complaints, but making claims, and who those claims apply to. A woman by the name of Karen, who sometimes acts as a caseworker for CPS, took my offspring by way of robbery, by way of theft. And that Karen has caused I a harm by way of trespass. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So, Sandy says you reference Nebraska often. Is there something here I'm not aware of?
I spend a lot of days out in the area geographically identified or known to be Nebraska. Less people, more freedom.
Okay, we got a bunch more questions that maybe we can get through before we move on. Driving and traveling, what's the difference?
Driving is a commercial activity and traveling is a lawful activity. You have a right to use your private household consumer goods, primarily used for non-commercial purposes, freely on the highways, byways, passages, roadways, streets, alleyways, at your leisure for your pleasure, absolutely unaccosted by any agent and agency or gun-toting moron. You have an unalienable right to do so. Driving is an act of commerce, which is what the state patrol and the police officers and the sheriffs are supposed to be monitoring and engaging in, is commerce. Anybody engaged in commerce is supposed to be monitored because they're supposed to be keeping the highways, freeways, byways, and passages safe for us everyday folk who use it for our means of travel to go from point A to point B for our leisure and our pleasure.
So if you're a delivery driver and, you're hired by somewhere, then you are legally bound to have a license and have, because now your purpose for driving, your purpose for traveling is commerce. So now you're not traveling anymore. You're actually driving for
right.
that business.
Yep. And it's upheld in over 100 plus years of U.S. Supreme Court cases.
Okay, here's a few more questions up here. What about, I saw the question. So now you've got your land patent. Now you pass away. What happens to that land if you had a will and passed it on to someone else? Do they now have the rights to that land? Or, what happens if there's no will?
That's a great
tell
question.
us kind of both scenarios?
When you call forward the land patent in your good name, it would be very wise to point out your heirs and assigns because they are forever, okay? And when you understand that contract creates the law and equity follows the law, and the laws that are created in the United States of America are through contract, once you've called forward the land patent in your good name, you can still sell the real estate and property. You can still do away with your rights, titles, and interest in said land by granting it to the next man or woman wishing to enter into a contract with you, okay? Well, what you can't do is you can't sell a land patent. It can only be granted.
Okay, and here we've got, what about debt buyers that purchase unpaid debt for pennies, then harass and sue? The debt, i.e. credit card, was with the original creditors. Didn't the debt buyer just pay off your debt for pennies? No debt was agreed to with the collector, so how do they have a right to sue?
They don't have a right to sue. What they do is they send notice to you, and they send notice to a man or a woman who doesn't respond in a timely manner. That man or woman acquiesces by tacit agreement, by failure to respond. latches occur, and then they go into the court system and say, see, judge, we put them on notice. They didn't respond. This is confession and avoidance. They acquiesced by tacit agreement, and thus we should liquidate their assets, garnish their payments, liquidate their bank account, liquidate their 401k, liquidate their 801k until we're made whole. And the judge says, fine, so be it. So everything that is sent to you via the mail is very important to open it up and respond to it. Respond to it. Do a conditional acceptance. I conditionally accept your offer to contract. I'm aware that you allege that there's a debt. I have no problem paying that debt so long as you can validate that debt through a verification, not a debt validation, but verification. Verification is sworn to. It's an affidavit or a statement of fact sworn to under the pains and penalties of perjury, written by a man or woman with firsthand knowledge of how the debt was created, when the loan was lent, so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for sharing that information. Here we got a question from PTL Media Now. Do you know a Dean Clifford?
I sure do. I haven't seen Dean for a long time. I think I've only spoken to him maybe twice in my life going through this. He's out of Canada. Very sharp man. He's kind of adapted and adopted the ways of Carl Lentz, John Little, as many of us have. Simplistic, keep it simple, stupid tactic seems to work best for everybody involved. So yes, I'm aware of who Dean Clifford is.
So speaking of him and Canada, next question is, do these same rules and information apply in Canada, or would he be someone to reach out to if you were Canadian, because he would know specifically more of what happens in Canada?
It's pretty much all the same throughout the world. Sound doctrines and principles are the law. They are the rule of the roost, if you will. See, many people think that people like myself are practicing the law. We're not practicing the law. We merely see the law. We realize the law has been established from the beginning of time. The law has been perfected in every way. All we're merely doing is discovering it again, dusting it off. We're not reinventing it. We're merely enforcing it. We're merely using it. That's it. There is nothing new under the sun.
So it's just basically understanding what the law is and being able to use it to your advantage.
Yeah, jurisdiction is the word spoken, or the law of the words. Okay, there's law or rules involved in grammar that create a law. Proper punctuations and proper words convey certain things. In legal land, there's a manipulation of the language, a bastardization of the language. Nobody understands legalese. Hell, the lawyers barely understand legalese. That's what makes it so great. They can just run amok on the American people and nobody's the wiser because, hell, they really don't even understand what they're doing. The only thing that matters is at the end of the day, they smack down the gavel and go, we agree with ourselves and to hell with you. And that's typically what you get. No matter how inquisitive you are, how intelligent you are, at the end of the day, you did a fine job arguing there, son, but it doesn't benefit me to see it in your favor. I see it in my buddy's favor, who's a bar association member, who's unjustly enriching himself and me, and we're getting federal grants to fleece you administering the bankruptcy because you don't know who you are. So we're ruling in our favor again. Thanks for coming to play the greatest con game in the world, and welcome to our courts. That's justice. But when you learn the law, when you learn how to hold these tyrants accountable, now it gets fun. I used to have so much animosity. I absolutely love it now. I love walking into the room and seeing them get nervous because they're very, very educated men and they know just how much liability they're carrying. And as soon as you point out a couple things, the house of cards just comes tumbling down.
Oh, that's beautiful. I hope one day to watch you in action in court. That actually excites me. So Lila says here, the government has lien on all property tied to national debt. She wants to hear more about that.
Yeah, you just simply have to get a hold of the Department of Interior and ask them how much of the national debt is tied to your real estate and property and that you would like a full payoff quote so they could remove the federal lien off of your real estate and property, and they'll send it to you.
Okay, and I think that was it for the questions. When you said the judge was a black robe cross-dresser, is that your description?
Oh, I've called them out for doing that. You know, when they want to bark orders at me. The last man I'm going to listen to is a guy who's wearing a black dress with dick and balls trying to bark orders at me as a cross-dressing tranny. You're not going to sit on a bench, pretend that you're all high and mighty wearing a dress trying to bark orders at me. I'm a man. You're going to speak to me like a man, or we're going to have some issues. And I've had that in the past. My animosity isn't quite like that anymore. It takes quite a bit for me to pull out some George Carlin shit like that in court now. Because once you become knowledgeable, there's no need to waste words. There's no need to insult them. They're already looking befuddled and stupid once you're in there and you know what you're doing. They're already aghast and looking at the clerk and looking at the prosecutor and looking for anybody to give them a helping hand out of the situation.
So before, when you had that kind of animosity because you were learning and you were pissed off about everything, so you went there with kind of like full guns a-blazing.
Oh, absolutely.
But now you're just there being smarter than them and not having to, make things worse by insulting them.
Well, when we look at the etymology of the word smart, remember I said words have meanings and words are powerful. I had a judge sit on a bench one time and say, "You're a really smart fella, Mr. Gonzalez. You're real smart." And he was saying it in a demeaning connotation. And I was pretty proud of myself. I didn't catch the demeaning part until later in hindsight, thinking about, why was he being so cocky about that? So I went and looked up the etymology of the word smart, and it actually means painful. So when we say smart, we're actually calling each other painful. And he was calling me a very painful individual in his courtroom that day. And here I was, pretty cocky, going, "Yeah, you like that? I got stuff. I'm here all week, Judge. We could go round and round and round." So it's a matter of intelligence, acquired knowledge, a willingness to learn and gain knowledge. And look, the mind only works if it's open. It's just like a parachute, right? So we do our best to teach our fellow brothers and sisters the right way to walk. And as soon as we all start walking in the same direction, we will be a force that will be something to reckon with. There has never been a single war in this world that has ever been won with bullets, guts, guns, and glory. Not one. Ever. Ever. Every war that has ever come to an end came to an end with pen and a piece of paper and a cord between gentlemen. Period. So let that sink in. They want us to be violent. They want us to do these things. They want us to lash out, because then it shows that we don't have control of the mentis. We don't have control of the mind. We are an enemy, belligerent combatant. We are indigent. We are of unsound mind. We are a lunatic. So they want that. They do things just to provoke us to be that way. And once you start to ascend to the mind, you'll realize that you don't have to be that way at all. Sometimes the most intelligent man in the room says nothing at all.
Makes sense. So basically he was calling you smart and he was saying you were a pain in the ass?
He was saying I was very painful. And looking back in hindsight, I have to agree with him. I'm sure I was a very painful son of a bitch back then for people like that.
So we have a question, I think from what you were saying, what type of trust?
Oh, there's a number of different trusts. What are they talking about as far as trust?
I'm not sure. Someone said there should be a trust.
You got private trust. You got irrevocable trust. You got revocable trust. You got all kinds of trusts.
In Australia, Nathan is saying government now takes your assets if you don't have a will in Australia.
That makes sense. They're doing it under the Sest-KV Act of 1666. Usufruct. They're taking things because people don't know how to handle their own affairs anymore, and government was instituted amongst men to control the assets on behalf of the undisclosed beneficiary. So come back as the beneficiary. Stand up and let them know who the hell you are. I am a man known to use the name Derek Chaton Gonzalez, and I will take no lip and no shit from any government actor, agent, and agency. Notice to principal is notice to agent, and notice to agent is notice to the principal. You trespass against me, and I'm going to take your house, your 401k, your 801k. Your kids are going to hate you. Your cat's going to shit on your living room floor. Your wife's probably going to go to dinner with me, and that's that. I catch you kicking a pop down the fucking street, I'm going to get you for destruction of my private property because that's my nickel you're kicking. I'm going to leave you destitute because there are things far worse than death. You want to play a game? I love games. Let's play. You want to hide behind a title of nobility and act as though somehow you're above the law when you're operating outside your scope and you're no longer covered by risk management? Let's play. You're 100% personally liable the second you operate outside your scope of authority, which is very, very fucking limited. You have to be able to articulate reasonably your suspicion of me committing a crime, about to commit a crime, or in the commission of a crime. Okay? And then you have to have a reasonable, articulable fact to support that. And if you don't have that, playing with me is going to be a bad day for you. I promise you. And every last one of you has that power. Every last one of you has that power. You have a right to be secured in papers, houses, persons, and effects. You have a right to cancel contracts at will. Think about this. If you can cancel a marriage for $50 fucking, what say you? Can you cancel a contract with the government? Your marriage is a vow for life until death do us part, and the government sure doesn't have a problem with you canceling that contract, do they? So if you find that a contract with the government or its agencies purportedly no longer benefits you, your family, or otherwise, can you rescind that contract? Can you terminate that contract at will? Absolutely you can. So just do it. They're not a government. They never have been a government. Since 1861, they're the furthest thing from a government. It's that simple.
All under corporate law.
Yeah, and again, corporate policies, which are sometimes perceived to be law, who do they apply to? The ones that either volunteer to be subject to it, or the ones that created it. Period. If I'm an employee of Walmart, do I have to abide by their policies as an employee? Yes, I do. But if I'm not an employee of Walmart and I'm just walking around in their shopping, do I have to abide by their policies? No, I do not. Because I am not entered into a contract with them. I don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to, because I'm not your employee. However, if you want to treat me like an employee and force me to wear a mask while I'm in there, I will happily, conditionally accept your offer. I just need your W-9 and your name, Susan. Thank you. And your identifying number. Thank you, Susan, so much. Oh, and by the way, what's the number for your billing department? Can I get the number for your billing department? Because if I'm going to work for you, I'm going to send them a bill. All right? I accept wearing a mask as part of your policy. You're going to treat me like an employee. You're going to order filet mignon. I'm going to bill you for this filet mignon. And it's expensive. All right? It's that simple. Quit working for free. When you're putting on a mask and complying, you're volunteering. And you can't, equity will not aid equity does not perfect an imperfect gift. So if you're volunteering to put on that mask, then so be it. What are you bitching about? You volunteered. However, if you submit a true bill and due and owing for your goods and services rendered by wearing a mask while they treated you as a Walmart employee, right? Then they owe you. And because you didn't slumber upon your rights and you know who you weren't involved in involuntary servitude, were you? You offered goods and services just like they requested and ordered, and you billed them for it. It works in court. It works on the side of the road with a cop. It works with any corporation. It doesn't matter. It's that simple. It really is that simple. It's just a matter of getting your testicles, picking them up and going, fuck, I'm a man. This is great. Love this shit. It really is. And for you ladies out there, pick up your chesticles. Yes, mother am I. Let me tell you how this is going to work, you little sniveling snot rag. You're going to pay me $220,000 for wearing that mask today. Thank you very much. These are my goods and services I've provided to you, right? It's that simple. And you don't have to be that extreme about it. Fuck, just bill them $5,000. $5,000 for wearing a mask for 5 minutes? Fuck it. Well worth it, right? Take a picture. Take a picture of the girl who ordered you to wear a mask, put the mask on, take a picture with her, and then send it off to the billing department. Hey, I fulfilled the order of one of your employees, whether or not she was authorized to make me wear a mask or not. I complied with your policy, and because you treated me like an employee, I now need my check for $30,000. I expect that check in the next 21 days. Or is it your intent to trespass on me by way of debt by dishonoring this instrument, this true bill due and owing? Watch how fast the legal department sends you a check. And then calls down there and says, hey, that guy, this guy right here, the one that you're looking at, don't you ever tell him to do another motherfucking thing when he's in your store. Not a fucking thing. You hear me? Not a fucking thing. Or it'll be your job. And they hang up. And that's the truth of it. That's the power you have.
Oh, I love you.
That's the power each and every one of you have.
I love this. You're one of my favorite people.
It's just logic. It's just common sense, guys. I don't work for free. You don't work for free. Let's teach our youth how to do this. They don't work for free either. It says in the good book, my people will suffer for their lack of knowledge. And for a lot of years, I sat there stewing about that. What does this all mean? How could this be? And then as you start to look at it and see it, do you realize your sign of nature is the new currency in the economy? You created it. All corporations are insolvent. They have zero value. They cannot create credit. Only the living man creates credit. That's it. Without us, their whole system fails. We don't need them. They need us. Period.
So, speaking of... Well, I just wanted to finish off with what you said. So, if they need us, why do you think push is for them to eliminate so many people with what they're kind of doing right now?
Because they don't need that many of us, let's be honest. They don't need that many of us. The Georgia Guidestones, there's some secret societies in this world, and I'm not talking about the ones you already know of, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg groups. You only know about those groups because they want you to know about those groups. It's the ones you've never heard of that make me nervous, all right? It's the unseen groups that I know exist out there. The men and women don't have names that run those groups. The ones you've heard of, who gives a shit? They're not secret. They want you to know about them. It's the ones you've never heard of. Those are the ones that should make you nervous. And they're very sinister, evil, dark, twisted, manipulative little fuckers. Like the Jesuits. You never ever see a Jesuit. You hear about people being trained by the Jesuits. Like Dr. Fauci comes out on TV and he's very boastful about it. Yeah, I was trained by the Jesuits. Am I ever going to step down? No, I'm not. He's never going to step down because if he tried to step down, they'd kill him. That's that, all right? But you notice he never mentions anybody's name. He says he went to Yale. Surprise, surprise. A Jesuit-run school. No big deal, right?
Skull and bones.
Sure. Okay? Those are the types of people that are very nefarious you should be leery of. The ones that have no names. How is debt buying legal? Well, because debt's an asset. People have debt misconstrued with a bad thing. Debt is not a bad thing. Debt is an asset. Double bookkeeping entries. You're balancing the ledger. That's all it is. Credit's in, debit's out. At the end of the day, the books need to read zero. That's commercial.
Makes sense. Thoughts on City of London, Vatican City, and Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, they're the three sovereign state nations. What do you want to know about them? The City of London handles all the banking, the Vatican is the reaping of the souls, and D.C. is the largest military force enforcing it all. Any other questions about that?
No, that covers it from what I'm thinking. Jurisdiction, law words, makes perfect sense. Biden wants eyes in bank accounts over $600. How is this, legal at all for them to look into your own personal matters like that?
Well, first of all, you opened up a general bank account instead of a special deposit account, so that screwed you there. There's a difference between deposit and positing something, or special posit. Deposit means to no posit. If I defraud you, so many people try to bring claims into court. I was defrauded. The judge just laughs. I mean, he's sitting there going, how stupid can this guy be? Well, Judge, I don't understand. DE means no. So you're running in here claiming that no fraud has occurred and you want me to rule in your favor for an award? When your dumbass come in here from the get-go saying there was no fraud that occurred at all. You see what I'm saying? So DE means
so there was
no.
fraud. There was fraud committed against me. I wasn't
right.
defrauded.
There was a trespass that caused I a man harm by way of fraud. The wrongdoer trespass against I, causing I a man harm by way of fraud, by way of extortion. You see, it's all in the way you structure it that makes the true claim, that makes the accurate claim.
Makes sense. Do the tyrants have to pay taxes on their grants?
That's a good question. Yeah. A lot of them are not paying the taxes on that. They're whisking it away off into trust funds and things of that nature.
Is that what, like, these Panama Papers and all these kind of things where they got all these offshore
the grants
accounts
that
and
she's
they're
talking about,
hiding
like,
all the money in these other places?
Yeah, the grants she's speaking of are like from CPS, traffic tickets, things like that. The federal government gives grants that trickle down through the Treasury Department. And then the Treasury issues the grants to, certain counties, certain judges, certain sheriffs that enforce these policies for federal funding. Those are the grants she's talking about.
Jeff says here the title company said there was no lien on his property when he bought his house. Can he sue them? How can I make them liable? I think what you'd have to first do is, get your land patent.
No, not necessarily true. First thing you want to do is get a hold of the Department of Interior and ask them how much of your real estate and property is directly tied to the national debt and that you want a full payoff quote to remove the federal lien put on your real estate and property. And they will send it to you. Then you take that evidence. You can pay it off if you want. Ron Gibson says pay it off. I say you don't have to. Okay, you got them with their pants down. You show them the evidence from the Department of Interior and say, looky, you told me that this was clear and marketable title, but the Department of Interior tells me that there's $70,000 due in owing and they've got the real estate and property lien, so there's no marketable title, okay? And because of that fact, I'm going to go ahead and go to your errors and omissions insurance claim department, and I'm going to claim a harm times treble the promissory note. 3 times the promissory note. And I'm going to make that claim through your errors and omissions because I can prove that you insured this stating for and on the official record that it was clear and marketable title, and I have clearly the evidence in my hand that proves the opposite, which has caused me a harm. It's a breach of trust, it's a breach of contract, and they're in default, and they owe you for it.
Yeah! Oh, I like that. Do they consider you a sovereign citizen?
Who's making an allegation that I'm federally defined as a terrorist, a domestic terrorist? You let that ballsy son of a bitch come forward and I'll show you how to fleece an asshole. I've had judges call me a sovereign citizen and quickly rebut and rebuke their statement and strike it from the record. Because that's exactly what I say. Are you calling me a terrorist? I hope you have the evidence and the facts to back it up. No. Mr. Gonzalez, we're not going to go down that road. I'll redact that from the record. The clerk will be advised to, the stenographer, ma'am, just clear that from the record. That doesn't need to be on there. While you're at it, go ahead and take that 3 days of mental health evaluation. Take that out of the record as well. We don't want that on there because Mr. Gonzalez would like a quid pro quo, and Well, I don't have the heart to tell Nancy I won't be home for 3 days, because then we'll both end up at the funny farm. They're extending you an offer to contract. Accept it. Accept it and return it for value. Watch how quick they jump up off the bench and run their asses out of the courtroom. I think you need 10 days in the hooscow. I conditionally accept your offer and I return it for the same, Judge. See you after 10 days. Enjoy the old Iron Hotel. Toodles. Because he who provides the ends also provides the remedy and provides the means. So if you see it fit that I be there, you must go there first.
Wow. Let's see what's here. My daughter has not called home in 8 months. I am not certain where she is, and the courts will not tell me. The last time I have seen her was in the courtroom when they placed me in jail and her into the mental hospital. After 23 days, she was released to a third party. How do I take my power and rights back?
Will you go grab me that documentation off the nightstand over there?
Yep.
Appreciate you. Give me a second, I'll help you out. Secret agent woman.
Man, I like this, and you got such a great personality. Like, you really fit well into this role of helping people.
We do our best, it's, yeah, that'll work. Okay, well, that's...
Is that not the right one?
No, go the other nightstand. There's a whole plethora of paper, a whole stack. Remember, there were 2 stacks. Put this back where it goes, though, so I don't get it confused. Because we got to email that to the clerk of the court tomorrow. The reason I know these things, Jesse, is because I practice what I preach. I'm not out here just blowing smoke up people's asses, sitting around a wildfire watching it grow, hoping people succeed. We actually go through and we do things. So I'll just show you. This is the little guy we're helping out right now. Okay. And the paperwork is really this simple. I don't know if you guys can see that, but maybe
No,
not.
it's just all white.
New lighting. My apologies. But
It's all
anyway,
good.
it says this. I'm just going to fill my name in here because I don't know this gentleman wants his information out there, so I'm just going to put my name in there, all right? In the Gonzales Court at the Grant County Superior Court, I, man, Derek Gonzales, prosecutor pursuing Daniel Baxter, wrongdoer, okay? Daniel Baxter would be the CPS worker that has taken this offspring, all right, without court order, just showed up with some gun-toting morons and engaged in armed robbery under the guise that they were just doing their job. They violated the law. Now, you explain this to a cop, a state trooper, a sheriff, they laugh at you. I'll tell you somebody who's not going to be laughing in the very near future, and that's going to be Daniel. Daniel is going to be crying in his Cheerios because although he was doing his job, that doesn't negate the fact that he broke the law while doing his job, okay? And so what do? We have to follow due process law. We got to put Daniel here on notice. Hey, Papa. Hey, Papi. You fucked up, all right? And we want our property back. And you're going to bring us our property back post haste, or we're going to start billing you $1,000 a day and $1 per minute. Our property is not returned, okay? And with that notice sent out, remember, if they don't respond, their silence is acquiescence, and they agree to it, and it is as simple as going to the insurance company and making an errors or omissions claim. Won't be long for the insurance company's breathing down his neck saying, look, we can't insure you anymore and we can't have you employed here anymore. You're a liability. You have cost us way too much, okay? Not only that, but the court will enforce this because we are holding our own court on the 4 corners of paper, okay? That's the only thing that matters is the 4 corners of paper. We're holding our own court. And when you learn how to do this, then you can set the rules of your court, and the rules of the court are very simple. Only man or woman with first-hand knowledge can testify in the court. They have to do it under the pains and penalties of perjury in open court. And they have to have first-hand knowledge. We don't take any lawyers in our court. They can't speak in our court. They can't be heard in our court because they don't have any firsthand knowledge. And Trinsley versus Pagliaro says a court can't reach summary judgment based upon hearsay. Okay? So when you comprehend that, the power of moving your own court, then this will make sense to you. So it says, to a man or woman, or to a man, Daniel, who at times acts as Department of Child Services Family Case Manager, okay, in reference to trespass by way of robbery of property. Greetings to the man Daniel, who at times acts as case manager. I, man, known to use the name Derek, family of Gonzalez, write this notice in reference to a trespass by way of robbery of property that does cause harm and loss to I. I state that on the 23rd October 2020, I did witness you, a man, take the property of I. See attached Exhibit A, the photo of property. We're calling the offspring property. We're not giving them a name. Giving them a name is fucking you over. Quit giving them names. Just show them a picture, all right? I, Tarzan. Jane took ball. Me, Tarzan, want ball back, or Jane get bitten ass by lion. That's simple. Jane took ball. Me want ball back, or Jane get bitten ass by lion. That's how simple your court can be. Everybody can understand it, including a 3-year-old kid going, hey, Jane, sound like you get bitten ass by a lion, you don't get ball back. You better get ball back. 3-year-old understands that, okay? So we write like that, and it sounds absolutely ridiculous and retarded, but it works, guys. It works. You don't have to think like a lawyer and be a lawyer to make this shit work. I require the immediate restoration, not return. If we're going to return something, maybe they just turn it around and around and around. But to restore is different than to return. Oh, so I got a set of keys here. And you want me to return them? No problem. There you go. How about that? Would you like me to return them again? Oh, great. I returned them again and again and again and again. But if you want me to restore your property, well, by the way, here you go. I'm going to restore these to you. Thank you very much for allowing me to utilize them and not penalizing me for using it. I'll restore your property to you. Are you comprehending what I'm saying?
100%.
The words have power, okay? And we've been taught to babble in Babylon. I've had judges sit on a bench and go, I'd love to help you, but all you're doing is babbling. You sound like a little 3-year-old whining for his bottle. And I'm going, I know what I'm saying. How is it you don't understand what I'm telling you? You son of a bitch. You know, you're just babbling, Derek. And if you don't quit babbling, I'm just going to have no choice but to walk out of this courtroom and adjourn this court case. And we'll see you next month. Maybe you'll figure it out in 30 days. You're just babbling. And at the time, I didn't realize what he was saying to me. I was babbling. I was using words that absolutely have no meaning at all. I was using pronouns and adjectives in front of nouns that diminish the noun. And so when I speak now, I speak a lot more clearly, with a whole lot more clarity, all right? And a whole lot more force and meaning behind what I'm telling you. So I require the immediate restoration of said property within 21 days. However, if it is your wish to remove controversy and now provide remedy for what I believe is a trespass by you, immediately restore the property of I, and I will forgive said trespass as I would wish a trespass by I to be forgiven. It's that simple. Terminate the contract with CPS. I, a man, I, a woman, no longer wish to contract with Child Protective Services. I, a man, now terminate any blind adhesion contract, consensual contract. They're all terminated, canceled, okay, rescinded. That simple. And it doesn't even need to be that long-winded. I, a man, cancel contract, period. End of story. They need your consent to do what they're doing. However, if at that time said property is not restored, and if you still believe you do no wrong, then I would be more than happy to invite you to a court of law. Whose court? The Gonzalez court, where you will be invited to testify to any lawful excuse you may feel you have, right? Because their excuse is going to be, I was just doing my job. Well, just doing your job, Scooter, doesn't mean that you're not violating the law, all right? But it's up to us to enforce the law. However, if at that time you do not have a lawful excuse to press upon the record, then I will seek compensation for what I believe is a trespass by you. Now, this is notice and opportunity, otherwise identified as due process of law. I will seek compensation to be placed before the court in the amount of $1,000 per day per usage of said property as fair and just compensation, plus $1 a minute that each trespass did, do, does, continue, and I will do so in your private capacity as man versus woman in open court before a magistrate, where I will press said claim to be paid by money order within 21 days of said order as compensation for what I believe to be a trespass against you. I say all in here be true and will verify in open court. It's that simple. That's a nice, polite, eloquent, bring my property back before I strangle your ass financially. That's as nice as it can be.
I love it. So here's some more from her. She said her daughter was just 15 years old, was taken to Arizona, then to Wyoming, and then now she may be in Montana. She was taken against her will. They said I don't know what the question was. Did you file a missing persons report? Someone asked her, and they said they won't let me. This is all done by judge. She took my custody, then trafficked her, and now is charging me. And I face up to 7 years in jail. I had no documents that stated all this, and the lawyer at the time told me I would be a sovereign citizen, then withdrew after I was indicted.
Did you accept the allegations of being a sovereign citizen, or did you rebut and rebuke it? Did you accept her calling you a sovereign citizen, or did you say I need a finding of facts and conclusions of law on how you made that determination?
She said it's a big mess that is at the heart of Kids for Cash, and they want to shut her up.
I know all about it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a hula hoop, a kid, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's your property. And at the end of the day, you're going to order them to restore your property, or you're going to bill them. Because at the end of the day, you're right. All they care about is their pocketbook. And when you learn how to do this process, you start affecting their pocketbook, they will go get your property and restore it post haste. Because you're right. It's all about human trafficking. It's all about profit. And as soon as you start nicking them in their pocket, they will start bringing your assets back to you, your property.
She said, no, she's not. I am not a sovereign citizen. I just want to move in law.
That's real simple. You, the woman, call the shots, call the ball. Give them notice. I do not consent to you having custody of my property. I want property back. Give them a picture of your property and properly assess how you're going to bill them.
That's amazing. And this is his website. So www.selfgovernanceeu.com. Please email him if you have any questions, because this is serious, right? When they take property that's a child, that's, this is no joke. So we definitely need to help her.
Well, child has a different connotation, Child is not what you think it is. Just like kid is not what you think it is. Kid is the offspring of a goat. Child is a government creation. The child was abandoned at the hospital. Nobody got the paperwork. Nobody took the child out of the hospital. All right, what she's talking about is her property. It's her flesh and blood, her DNA. It's her property. And she needs to go tell them to restore and restore her property. I almost said return. I got to stop myself. Even I, once in a while, get tangled up in the words. Restore the property.
It's a lot to unlearn.
Yeah, it is. And that's the biggest task, is to unlearn what we've been ingrained to believe. That's the hardest thing. And I think why it was so easy for me is because I dropped out of school at 13. So it made it very, very easy to unlearn the little bit of bullshit they had managed to push into my head. For college graduates, this thing is like Mount Everest. It's difficult for them. You know, they want to muddy the waters with how intelligent they are, how much they can read and regurgitate. Hell, I still do it. You know, I've studied a lot of the legal system. And some of my constituents and my mentors get a hold of me and go, yeah, you're brilliant, man, but you're confusing the shit out of people because you take it from being simple to being so complex now because you want people to know how much you've read and how much you've gained in knowledge, but you're really hindering them. You're not helping them. So come back down to being simple, Derek. So I'm working hard on that now, too. Because when you start studying this, your language becomes extravagant. You know, your vocabulary becomes very extensive in a short order if you're taking it seriously. And you like using those new words. They're fun, you know. But at the same time, it doesn't help your fellow brother and sister ascend to the mind because you're speaking over their head.
Does Derek know anything about commutarian law?
Not a clue.
Okay, this was Jeff that we were talking about the property before. You know, about the
no, you have to start
property stuff. He said,
yeah, you have to start a new bank account. They won't let you make it to a special deposit account. They'll want you to start an entirely new account. Special deposit, tax exempt. All your deposits are going to be in lawful money. Redeemed in lawful money, all your checks, everything. It's the intent. It's the intent, not the form, ladies and gentlemen. That was a hard thing to learn about legal land. Legal land's all about the structure and the form, and in equity, it's all about the intent and the substance.
so here we have Sandy saying, with all the manipulation, what about crooked judges? How do you fight the crooked judges?
You put them on notice. You hold them accountable for their breach of oath of office. You have to know the law. He who slumbers on his rights has none. He who doesn't know his rights also has none. I know it seems really harsh and unfair, but that's why I do exactly what I'm doing now, is to help you guys, because I too was lost at one point. I really struggled. You're looking at a man who's been in and out of court since he was 11, 12 years old. So I've been in and out of the court system my entire life, mostly for fist fighting, okay, mostly.
Here Jeff says, so we're talking about billing the places that want to force you to wear a mask, and it says, you have said that you need a W-9 as employee of the company if you're asked to do something you don't want to do, mask wearing. What are the tax implications for that act?
The W-9 is what they're required to have by their own system. They're required to have a W-9 to operate in the state. That's an EIN, all right? So it's a TIN or an EIN. Most of these entities purport to be government, but when you do a 3949A, a 13909, and a 4506A IRS form, and a 211 whistleblower form, you'll find out that when you send it to Ogden, Utah, those four forms, it'll come back and they'll say that it's not a government agency. Well, if it's not a government agency, then it's not tax exempt. But the IRS will also purport back and say that they're not tax exempt. They really don't know what the agency is. Okay, I'm talking about courthouses for the most part. But something like a school, you may find the exact same thing. They're a corporation. Because after 1861 and the Reconstruction Act of 1871, Abraham Lincoln did a memorandum of law reconvening Congress underneath his authority as the commander-in-chief. We don't have a president of the United States after 1871, ladies and gentlemen. We have a commander-in-chief of the largest standing army in a time of martial law, and it's rule by force. It's what it is, out of necessity. Necessity trumps law every time. So that's what they're doing on their side of the field. And when you understand that, then you quickly are able to know that In 1913, when Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act, and then in 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt enforced the Federal Reserve Act, taking all the gold and silver. And then in 71, Nixon did away with the gold standard altogether, completely removing the Federal Reserve note from anything backed by solid asset, right? So the whole thing is a corporation, and as soon as you figure that out, then you can stand up with your chesticles and sound off like you're out of fucking pair. Because you realize really quickly, everybody's acting on behalf of a principal, a corporation. So they're all trustees acting somehow like their statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, regulations, and policies apply to you. And treating you like an employee. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't work for free. So I'm going to get your W-9. I'm going to fill out a W-4. I'm going to say that I don't want the payment for my time by putting in there, don't pay me $120,000 for filling your order and providing goods and services. Don't pay me that. So it's a way of making a claim without making a claim, and the IRS comes in and goes, hey, you had Derek employed here. He's got the W-9. He filled out the W-4, okay, and you withheld his earnings under his directive, and because you withheld his earnings, we're entitled to 16% of what you held as a revenue collector for us. And believe you me, the IRS will hammer their asses. And then you turn around and you get it back on a 1099-A acquisition form. It gets you a remittance check. So the W-9 is the EIN or TIN for the company that's giving you orders. The W-4 is a negative claim.
Yeah, that's beautiful stuff. She's asking Angela, the one with the 15-year-old daughter that they took, is there any time restriction to getting her property back?
There are no statutes of limitations in the lawful world. The lawful world is reality. A wrong is a wrong is a wrong. A trespass is a trespass until remedy is had. I don't care if it's 20 years old or 5 minutes old. A wrong is a wrong is a wrong. In legal land, statutes of limitations kick in. That's legal land. In the lawful reality, in the real world, there is no statutes of limitations. They took your property. You have a right to be made whole. Bring my property back, and I am willing to forgive you your trespass, but you're going to bring me my property back. Post haste. Right now.
That simple.
It is that simple. It really is. And we just make it too complex. And people go in the court and go, well, I went in the court. No. You're doing it wrong. Hold your own damn court. Court is held on the four corners of your paper. You go into their venue, whining and crying and slapping your leg and bellowing like a stuck hog. You're not going to get anywhere. You hold your own court, and you're talking about a completely different ballgame. It's theft by taking. It's robbery by way of force. It's a trespass causing you harm. You can prove that. A theft is a trespass that is unlawful, and it's also illegal. And when legal and lawful are in harmony is the only time I agree with them.
Nikki says Facebook is messing with the feed. It keeps breaking up. So I don't think it's Facebook because I'm going through StreamYard and I can still see him. What Derek said at the beginning, when he goes live and when he's getting this information out, they start messing with his internet signal. So somehow, something goes on. It's the strength and the power of the energy that's going through this, whatever's happening. But it seems like, a lot of times then when Derek tries to get his information out, then, the internet gets a little bit wonky because sometimes we hear just like, rah, 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 like little bits and pieces of what you're saying. But for 99%, we've heard everything. So.
Right. Well, I apologize for that. It's just how it is. I don't know how to fix it. I've tried to plug it in direct. It doesn't work.
Angela says she knows a place in Wyoming that has a class action lawsuit for child trafficking and labor.
Class action lawsuits are a joke. It's part of Legal Land. I gave up on Legal Land about a year ago. I stopped playing in that venue. There is no remedy for a man in Legal Land. It's not there. And the few wins they allow people to have there is just to give the simulation of justice. That's it. Being a lawyer is the only profession you can be wrong 50% of the time and still have a fucking job at the end of the year.
80% of the time.
Yep.
Sandy's asking about what you were talking about with the masks. So she was saying, if you're asking them for the W-9, what if they call the cops and have you removed and banned?
No, great. Bring the cops. I'd like them to fill out a full report on the issue. I'm going to turn them into my federal witnesses. I'm going to subpoena them to the Gonzales court held in whatever county or town that I'm in. I'm going to hold my court, and I'm going to use them against the tyrannical assholes trying to force their will on me. But if they're not going to give you a W-9, you just simply write refused on the W-4. No big deal. I love it when people say, if you don't put on a mask, I'm going to call the cops. Please call them. Hell, fuck it. I'll call them for you. What? Well, don't call the cops. Well, shit, you're the one that wanted to start a party. I fucking love cops. They're really good at doing one fucking thing, and that's creating a fucking record. So bring them on down. I'll subpoena them as fucking witnesses. Because it's John Doe Smith, who sometimes acts like a cop, that has firsthand knowledge now after he's shown up and he's witnessing with firsthand knowledge, you barking orders at me. I'm going to turn around and make him my witness. It'll be a sad day for you. Call the cops. Fuck, I encourage it. I implore you to do so.
Here's my phone.
Fuck, I'm a lawful man. I ain't got no problem. Call them.
Oh, I like it. So Jeff, don't you have a class on beating the banks on your website that helps with getting out of your mortgage and credit card debt?
I do. I have a class called Beating the Banks, or How to Beat the Banks. It's not on the website yet. We're still working on getting that website with all the classes actually put on there. It's a little bit of a logistical nightmare at this point. But for now, people just get on Cash App or Venmo or Zelle. They send me the $100 donation for the class. It comes with all the material, the paperwork, and an 8.5 hour plus audio video with PowerPoint that explains how to do it. And you send the donation through Cash App, Zelle, or Venmo. And then you just articulate your email address and what the donation is for, and I send it to you via Mega NZ. Until I can get it put on the website. Yeah.
What's the Mega NZ?
Mega NZ is a platform that Kim.com was using with Julian Assange and Edward Snowden to pass around the encrypted documents of the corruption within Hillary Clinton's administration, Bill Clinton's administration, Obama's administration, the Bush's administration, so on and so forth. So I started using them because Kim.com created Mega.nz before CERN had created, what is that one? ProtonMail.com. ProtonMail.com is from CERN, Switzerland. That's what the scientists were using to keep their data secret and encrypted. Well, Kim.com had created an encrypted email before that point. So that's what I use is MegaNZ, where I can store a bunch of data there, and then I can grant people access to the data.
Oh, that's amazing. Is that a paid service?
Yes. It's free.
So
you get on there for free and everything and sign up. I pay for it only because I store a lot of data on there.
And it's completely safe, secure, encrypted, all of it?
Correct. Yeah.
You feel confident with that?
When you set up a Mega.nz account, you want to make sure that you write all your passwords and stuff down, because if you lose them, you'll never be able to log back in. At least when I first set up mine, there was no fail-safe. I mean, if you forgot your password, you're just out. So whatever you've stored on there is just gone. You're not able to access it anymore. So write down your encryption key and all that stuff. Yep.
Crypto's kind of the same thing. So What else did you want to teach us about the due process?
Well, we pretty much covered due process. It's notice and opportunity. So for those of you that are struggling with it, I would implore you to go check out Bodie versus Connecticut, Boddi versus Connecticut. Okay, and that is one of the cases that will show you a multitude of due process of law and functions within due process of law, and that's Boddi, Boddi versus Connecticut. There's also Marbury versus Madison, showing you that every wrong has a remedy. Okay, that's part of due process of law. Notice and opportunity, making sure, you know, another thing about notice and opportunity, you need a disinterested third party to serve notice on the wrongdoer. Okay, whether you use the USPS in a 3811 form, attached to your certified mail return receipt, or you hire a private process server, but you can't use somebody that's involved directly in the case or the trespass, if that makes sense. It's got to be somebody outside that has no interest in the matter, and they need to be able to create a certificate of service, a certificate and notice of fault, a certificate and notice of default. These are the things that you need to learn in your arsenal of executing due process of law. Every notice and opportunity has to be sealed with a time, date, and stamp of when it was served, and a time, date, and stamp for when it should be responded to. According to federal rules of civil procedure, you have 21 days, but in the event somebody is making a claim against you, now they have a duty to perform and present all the evidence that they have against you, so you can compel them to perform in as little as 72 hours if you want. You don't have to necessarily do 21 days. But if you're making a claim against somebody else, give them 21 days plus 3 days of grace, because the mail sometimes is 3 to 4 days behind schedule.
That makes sense. We got a question here from Sandy where she says, what about the job mandates? And I'm thinking that she's referring to maybe the mask or the injection mandates.
Jabby. How far are you going to let me go into this? I don't want to obviously get your channel shut down. I know enough that we can get your channel shut down probably pretty quick, but I don't want to do that to you. So how would you like me to go about that eloquently?
Say what you got to say. Just try not to use the V word and
vagina.
You know, just
every man should fear vagina. That's a scary thing. Just, good Lord, isn't it crazy? You can say things like that, but if you say the VAXX, boy, it's like kryptonite. So yeah, let's talk about the old jabby for a minute. First of all, you are not going to penetrate my temple with anything absent my consent. And if you attempt it, you may be euthanized. Now, what Southwest Airlines is doing right now is what you're seeing is deviling at its finest. These are lawyers stating that, you know what, we're just going to let them have leave without pay until they quit. Why? Because if they quit, there's no cause of action for suit. So here Southwest Airlines looks like a real good guy, right? Even though we know what they're really doing is nefarious. They're saying, go ahead, take all the leave you want. Hell, don't come back if you don't feel like it. But if you quit, we're not liable. We didn't force you to take the old VAXX, all right? That was a choice of your own, and we granted you leeway to take as much time as you wanted to think about it. And you can quit at any time, but you're getting leave without pay. Funny how an agency can shoot a young man unarmed and they give him 2 weeks paid vacation while they investigate themselves and find themselves miraculously free of any wrongdoing. However, when they're trying to force you to do the old jabby, they can give you as much time as you want off, but it's not going to be paid. And they can make it appear as though they're being good-natured, but in all actuality what they're doing is trying to force people out of their careers, force them from having to pay their retirements and things of that nature. So there's a real catch-22 there. With the jabby, I'll tell you this much, ain't nobody putting nothing in my body. It will be a fight to the death. I'm not a nice guy when it comes to things like that. So I guess I'll just leave that conversation at that. If you want to shoot me up with something, I get to go first, and I use projectiles like 308 and 50 cal. I get to go first. You receive my shot, and then you can give me yours. That's how I play. Quid pro quo. I get to go first. Like Rochambeau, I get to kick you in the nuts first, and if you can stand at the end of the day, then you can kick me in the nuts if you want. But I get to go first.
Your analogies are great.
Yep, and I am going to football punch you like you wouldn't believe. Trust me. I'm not worried about you standing up and kicking me back square in the nuts, because you're not going to be able to.
So while you were just telling, all the people about that information, one person says it got interrupted. So I heard you clearly 100%. Another person they got bumped out. They kicked them out as you were relaying that information. I heard it clearly. So if anybody wants that information, I'm sure it's going to be on the live when you rewatch it, because I was able to hear him clearly. It didn't do that thing. So that was an actual Facebook thing. Wowzers. Well, we're coming up to the 2 hours. Is there anything else you wanted to do on this session? And I really think that, we should do this kind of on a regular basis, like every few weeks or every month if you're interested, because you got a lot of good information and there's going to constantly be more people. And then, this is the type of information that this is the missing link. Like, you are the missing link.
Well, sure. I wouldn't mind joining you whenever there's an availability. Within reason and moderation, of course. I think it's important to do these. I really appreciate and commend your work, Jesse, and I'm very blessed to have been on here now for the second time on The Missing Link. I really appreciate you. So, you just let me know when you want to do this again, and I'll try and bring forward more hard-hitting information for people and help them wrap their heads around it.
This is amazing. So, he's the Vince Vaughn of truth, is what PTI says. And
wow.
I don't think he likes that analogy.
It does. I've just been called a Vince Vaughn a lot, and I think it's funny because I don't see any resemblance. But to each his own, so it don't bother me none. When we're looking at this, the rights that we had the moment that we were born were the highest, purest, and unalienable rights and status enforceable in American courts that exist nowhere else in history of the world except for here on our land in the United States of America. Okay? It was a genius established private trust mortgage covenant established under the rules of equity and chancery, signed by multiple jointers and witnesses, the 56 founding fathers, intended for and willed to the posterity as heirs in equity, and it safeguards, secures, and protects your unalienable beneficial rights. Unfortunately, through ignorance and neglect, nobody taught you that civilian judicial power, core private rights, trust, mortgage, chancery practices, and laws, not commerce, govern the essence of the entire Western world since Jesus Christ, Yahshua, brought the new covenant in the face of Roman military and established Jewish Torah or Talmud and old traditions. Since our nativity or naturalization on the land operating upon us with or without our knowledge are only two competing realms of law, at law or inequity. The written law versus the unwritten law, the enumerated law versus the unenumerated law, the fictional realm versus the substantive realm, the civilian judicial powers versus the non-judicial powers, laws of the United States. And with that, I think we'll end this session, Jesse. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We're 2 hours deep, but I did want to close with that.
No, that was perfect. So I just wanted to say, when I said to you, would you like to come back on? We got Spirit Away says yes. Nathan Bird, yes, please. TJ, wonderful video, amazing talk. Thank you both. Jeff says lack of knowledge is the missing link, and that's what it is. It's just we're just bringing people information from every different area. You know, I don't know it all. Derek doesn't know it all, but what Derek knows, he knows. And you know, with Penny yesterday or last week, you know, she knows what she knows, and you know how we're just bringing out as much information because information is power. Knowledge is power. The more you can arm yourself with this type of information, like Derek goes into court, I don't think you're afraid when you go into court anymore. I don't think you're nervous. I think that you go in there maybe even a little bit cocky because you know that you're going to be able to, you know, kind of make them, you know, hair stand on their on their end with, you know, the things that you say and do because you've armed yourself with the knowledge that you're not going to be taken advantage of by this nefarious system.
That's right. And when you start to learn banking and realize what they're doing, you come in there and you want your rights, titles, interests, dividends, derivatives, debentures, hediments, general tangibles, general intangibles, chattels, trust residue, trust residuals, rents, profits, and proceeds. It's pretty simple. Give me my property. I, a man, want my property back. Restore my property, effective immediately. And so, you know, a lot of people go, oh, don't study anything on the legal aspect of things. I like being very well-rounded because I understand that I can operate in the legal side and the lawful side. They're barred from being in the lawful side. They are restricted from being over here where we can enjoy the law. Remember, they're at law, they're not in law. And there's a clear-cut difference. They're at law, they're practicing law. But the law doesn't need to be practiced, it merely needs to be enforced. And we are the enforcement. Learning how to hold our own court on the four corners of our own paper is the court, and learning how to use the structure in place that is law. It was all ingrained in us when we were kids. Johnny, did you take the cookie? Mom, I want to go outside. Johnny, did you take that cookie? Mom, I'm going outside. Little Johnny just practiced confession and avoidance naturally. We already know these things. He acquiesced by his omission, right? Which is an admission by him averting from answering to Johnny, did you take the cookie, right? It's that simple. If somebody asks me if I did a thing, I respond back to them either yes or no. It's that simple. If I didn't do it, then nothing else after that really matters to me, does it? But if I did do it, and they're stating that I caused them a harm, well, now I have an obligation, don't I? I have to remove the controversy by providing remedy. Or the sheriff will scoop me up and the judge will surely cast me to jail. We're supposed to be honorable. There's only two ways men and women walk around here. Honorable and dishonor. There's only two ways. You're either an honorable or you're walking around in dishonor. If you're in dishonor, there's good news. You can remedy it by doing what's right and correcting it. And now you're back in honor again. It's great.
Oh, I like that. That'll definitely have to be remembered and used in the repertoire. Thank you, Derek. This was amazing information and helpful.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Facebook. I do a number of things on Facebook almost daily. We have the selfgovernanceu.com website. It keeps scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you guys can see it. But thanks again, Jesse. The Missing Link is wonderful. I appreciate you. You're doing so much for so many. And thanks again for having me on.
Thank you, brother. And I just want to get through a few more of these comments. Another extra interview. Theorist George, this is right up your alley. It's the voice and dry humor with word flow. That's the Vince Vaughn reference note. Creator has his back. Oh, yes, he does. Woot, Yeshua. She was happy you made that reference. Thank you from Sandy. Always come back. Wonderful, necessary, life-saving info. And that's amazing. Like, that's such a wonderful compliment. I wouldn't say cocky. I say he's very confident. The Vince Vaughn reference was stated in all respect. Great info and wonderful guest. Don't get FB banned. Great show. Thank you. And going to follow. So you got some more people. And I like to say supporters. I like to, again, using the language and stuff, because we like, supporters. And, I don't per se like followers. I like people that, support what we're doing and, standing together, because we are on this journey together. It's all of us against a small group of parasites, and what they've done their best to get us all thinking that we're not one giant unit,
Right.
and that we're all just standing alone, and we're not alone. We've got people like Derek, and we've got people all around the world that are willing to stand up for you, stand up for your rights. But the most important thing is you need to stand up for your own rights. You need to, like, Derek said, you need to get your testicles, and actually stand in your own power, your own. All right. So would you be your own sovereign power?
Yeah, absolutely you are. You exhibit sovereignty. You're not a true sovereign because you still answer to the highest power, which is the creator. So we exhibit sovereignty, but we're not truly sovereign. We still have to serve a master, and his greater plan was for us to be doing the good works of the Heavenly Father. We have a purpose for being here, and that is to be caretakers of this great earth that was created for us. Okay? We are the beneficiaries of it. It was granted to us. If you read Genesis, it tells you that first the estate was created, then man was created, and then a trust or a covenant was created, and it was gifted to man, where we could be fruitful and plentiful and multiply. Look, 7 billion people in the world wouldn't even fill up Alaska, and we would still have plenty of room to roam and grow food and everything else. So that's not the issue. Although they'd like you to believe that's the issue, it's really not. The issue is that we need to start coming together and being one with one another and true to ourselves and honoring our mother and father, respecting our elders, and taking care of our business. Period. That's all it boils down to. And getting rid of the lying, looting, pandering, rat, weasel bastards identified as Bar Association members. They need to go. The only calluses they got on their hands, ladies and gentlemen, is from jerking off. That's sad. They really need to do something productive. Run a shovel for a day. Go dig ditches. Go do something other than beat off.
Your sense of humor is awesome. So Jeff, who was talking about some of the real estate stuff, so it looks like he wants to take some of the classes. So he just said, "What is the info when I want to pay Venmo, Cash App?" And I was just going to say, is all that information on your website? If someone wanted to donate, could they just go to the website, or?
It's on Facebook. I don't have it up necessarily this evening. I'll send you a link if you wanted to post it and share it on your wall or whatever. Jesse, if you wanted to attach it to this show this evening.
Best thing, Jeff, just do it, because once this show's over, you can actually just go and add anything you want in the comments and it'll pop up. But I was just going to say, Jeff, if you just, contact, Derek, just email him, or, just contact him, and I'm sure he'll be able to give you that information.
Facebook's about the best way of getting a hold of me. As far as the classes, I'll go on this evening and I'll repost all the information for the classes on my Facebook wall. Until we have self-governance, all the classes up on self-governance, that's really the best way for me to handle it at this point. So,
okay, perfect. This was another amazing Missing Link Thursday. We had 3 amazing, beautiful humans that are just doing their best to share and be a good person while we're here, and just
good man.
There's
do what you have to. Good men. We're just good men. We have to really start to be cognizant of the words we're using. Person is legal. Okay? Person is a corporation, a place, a business, a joint partnership venture, and a man is something the Heavenly Father created. So we're just good men who have persons that we can operate with. The driver's license is a person, the birth certificate's a person, the pilot's license is a person, the job application is a person, the social security number is a person, but you are a man. You give life, substance, and action to those persons as a man. You give personality to those things. Does that make sense? So you and I are
Does.
men doing God's good work, trying to educate people. So I just want to clarify that to make sure that people understand there's a difference with those words.
Totally. And I'm trying my best to make sure I use the right lingo in everything that I say. And like, there's things I will no longer say because I don't want to give them power. Anything that has to do with dark entities. When people say the saying, HE doubles hockey stick, yeah. I don't even like saying that word because now you're giving power. You're saying yeah to that negative entity. So I don't even say the word. I rather just say it that way. Or people say, oh, you're handsome as a. Well, no. Why would I ever want to call you something like that? That I don't think that that's handsome, and that's back to the trickery, the sorcery, back to the etymology. They're wanting people to use these negative entities in a positive frame, so it gives these negative things life. And people don't realize that. They use these terms as, oh yeah, it's no big deal, that wasn't my intent. But whether it's your intent or not, if you're using these things and giving it life, giving it energy, then you are part of the problem, whether that's your intention or not.
Amen, brother. Amen. I couldn't have said it better myself. I really appreciate that, Jesse. And I hope people are really heeding what you're saying there, because that is the reality of this all.
Just try and let me best. So what about human? Is that an okay word?
No, it's actually defined in Black's Law Dictionary as part man, part beast. So a hue man is also the color of man. It's H-U, hue, man. So that's the color of man, or part man, part beast. And neither one of those is acceptable. Just like child is not acceptable. And just like kid is not acceptable. Kid is the offspring of a goat.
Wow, have they ever tricked us?
I have property, whether it be a toothbrush, an automobile, my DNA, my offspring. I just identify everything as property. It's my property. Return my property. And instead of giving that property a name, I just give them a picture. Give me back my property. This is my property. You have my property. Here's what my property looks like. Go get it and bring it back to me. Post haste, or I'm going to bill you guys. I'm giving you an opportunity.
Woman is man in this term?
Woman and man. Woman means for the man. W-O-M-A-N actually means for the man. Adam, it wasn't right for Adam to be walking around the Garden of Eden alone, and God saw that, and he told Adam, it's not right for man to be alone. And so he put Adam to sleep, and he made woman, not from the head, so she would be above him, and not from the foot, so Adam could walk all over her, but from his rib, so she would be a helpmate. And woman actually means for the man. That's what woman means.
Wow, amazing. Are you going to do any classes on etymology and words? Is that something that...
I've got another class coming up here. We're going to get into equity. We're going to get into a tax class. I just completed my U.S. tax court petition. I've got 2 more FOIAs to do, and that'll be wrapped up. That conclusively proves that I am not a taxpayer. I'm not under any compelled obligation to perform with the IRS. I am not a taxpayer, so that's pretty cool. I will be doing one on child support really soon. I've had a number of calls at 3, 4, 5 in the morning of people, willing to blow off their heads or hang themselves from rope, and that's near and dear to me because that's really what got me started down this path. So, and I've swallowed my own pistol a number of times going through that. And that's the reality of that. Just wanting to be a good man, a good father, bust my hump, bust my ass, put food on the table, and provide for my little one. And I was on the straight and narrow after being years and years of doing what many people would feel was nefarious activity. I straightened my shit up, and when I did that, they took interest in me. And that caused me a problem. So I will have one on child support. I don't advocate that you don't take care of your offspring. What I'm saying is the government wasn't cupping your balls while you were copulating. So they have no right to tell you how to raise them. All right? They didn't wipe the sweat from your brow. They didn't cup your balls. They didn't give you a reach around. I don't care who the fuck you think you are working as government agent and agency. If you weren't there to help me ejaculate, see your way, exit right, stage left, whatever you want to do, but get the hell away from me because it ain't going to end well for you.
So what do people call their offspring? Like if you don't
Property.
say kids, you
Property.
don't say, it's just
Property. Anytime you're dealing with agents and agency and government, it's property. Now, if it's just me and you talking, I might have my daughter's given name that I present to you, you know. Sometimes she's sister. Sometimes she's a sister, you know. Sometimes she's identified by her name. Other times, you know, she's my little Piper Bear, you know. You call your property whatever the fuck you want. You might call this a pack of cigarettes. I call this a stress reliever. Who's right and who's wrong? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm right. You want to know why? Because this is my fucking property and I can call it whatever the fuck I want. See that? You call this a lighter. I may call it a fire stick. Who's right and who's wrong? I'll tell you what, I own it. It's my property. I call it whatever the fuck I want. That simple.
Here's a good one from Chip in Dallas. For the next time, how do we get our property back, our DNA, from the companies who took it under the guise, the fraud of medical procedures, the PCR test? That's a good one.
That would be a good topic, and I think we should come back in a couple of weeks and address that, because the people who were forced vaccinated, I want to tell you something. Here's what's coming in the very near future, and this is just a guess that I have, okay? So don't take this as Derek's word as God and he knows what's going on. I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm about to say. This is a very educated guess. The people who were jabbed are very soon going to have no rights at all because the gene that directly tied them to God has now been altered, okay? And what that's going to do is they're going to allege that you are now the property of that corporation, whoever patented that product, because they removed you from God, kind of like natural corn versus GMO corn. Now, I'm going to say this one time, and I just want you guys to think about it. If somebody pumps something into your body, did it change you and now they own you, or are you warehousing their product and you are due an owing for warehousing their product that they cannot remove from your body? That is how I want you to start thinking, because they're going to allege that you are now property. I'm going to tell you right now that you are warehousing their property, and because they are utilizing and renting space in your body, you better start billing them for it, because the shit they pumped in your body cannot be removed, and now that you're warehousing it for them, you should be greatly compensated. And I will leave it at that.
That's amazing. And just last thing, is the jabby jab the mark of the beast, in your opinion?
Well, Lucifer is the prince of this world. Jesus affirmed that he's the God of this world, and Paul also affirmed he's the God of this world. The mark of the beast has always been here. Jabby jabby, no jabby jabby, it doesn't matter. Look at your Social Security card. Everybody's got one in every country, directly tied to the IMF. Is that the mark of the beast? Who knows? Who knows? But what I will tell you is the jabby jabby is greatly going to shorten your life expectancy. You are going to see an abundance of new ailments that plague mankind because of this old jabby jabby, because it responds to everybody's body differently. Yes, we are all man and we are all one, but every one of us is unique. Our DNA is different. Our enzymes in our bodies respond to different things differently. Okay? Some people smoke till they're 90 years old and die of natural causes without ever having lung cancer. Other people smoke 2 cigarettes and end up with lung cancer. Your chemistry is different. Dissimilar things should not be joined, and similar is not same. Everybody is unique, although we are of one. Man, right? Man, woman, man being plural. So, I hope that helps you guys out with the whole jab thing.
It does, and what they've called it is luciferase. So if that doesn't tell you what it possibly is that you're injecting with, you need to do a little bit more research.
Yeah,
I call it demon juice.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I just say I'm never injecting that demon juice in me. It's not even an option. So as soon as you said mark of the beast, it cut out again, and then another person, they cut it again. So signal was lost for a few seconds. As soon as you started talking about that, they cut it again. I heard you perfectly. It didn't do anything with me. It didn't, no internet, nothing, but that was again probably another Facebook thing. So again, thanks a lot for your time. We really appreciate you and your time. And yes, we'll have you on back in a couple weeks. I like this. I thoroughly entertained. It's not just educational. I actually get super entertained by you. I really enjoy this. So, definitely if you have the time, we'll bring it back in a few weeks.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, Jesse. And again, the missing link is such a blessing to so many people. And thanks for hosting this show and also inviting me on.
Sending blessings, and we'll see you all next week for a mystery guest. I have to do some work next Thursday, so I think we're only going to have one, maybe possibly two. We haven't got that solidified yet, but that'll be on next week, and we will have somebody. So thanks again for all your likes, shares. We are all the missing links. You guys are what make this missing link happen, and thanks again to Derek Gonzalez. He's such a beautiful human and a treat for us to have on here. So see you all again next time on The Missing Link.